chase and twist.
Save, rebound, but wide. Darren Pang just robbed him.
Can't beat the heart of a lion, and Kelly Chase.
Gardner is in alone, shooting. Pang again! What a glove save!
I know one thing. He's not going to back Kelly Chase up at all. Chase will fight this thing until he's absolutely out of gas.
A great play along the wall to start with, just keeping the puck in. Shattenkirk with a quick decision. Schwartz bouncing on the puck.
The save of the year! The absolute save of the year! Holy jumping, what a save this is!
The pucker factor down on the Chicago bench is pretty high right now, let me tell you.
The Blues have stuck with the plan. The push was on, and that leaves the sniper off the bar and in the net. And that is our drive to the net, and why wouldn't it be?
This is Chasing Pucks with Panger, only on NHLPodcast.com, a Lineup Media Group production. Now, your hosts, Kelly Chase and Darren Pang.
Hello, folks, and welcome in. Chasing Pucks with Panger. Darren Pang, Kelly Chase, coming at you here for the next 45 to an hour. Having some fun with Darren Pang at Panger40 and at Chasing Pucks 39, our Twitter handles. If you want to, of course, everyone knows how they can grab a hold of us. Go to NHLPodcast.com. And we're looking forward to a great show this week. Garth Butcher's going to join us. You're going to sit down with me one-on-one. We're going to have a 15 to 20-minute chat. Some great stories of the former St. Louis Blues captain, Vancouver Canuck, of course, as well as the Nordiques and the Toronto Maple Leafs. A short stint there. This week we're going to talk.
Garth was in Toronto?
Yeah, that was his last stop.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah, he was traded in the Wendell Clark, Matt Sundin trade.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I know is I like being around the guy. And in a brief amount of time being here...
He's a gentleman.
He is, isn't he?
There was a lot of people that disliked Garth Butcher that didn't know that he was a gentleman.
As a player.
Nah,
yeah. That doesn't matter. What happens on the ice is on the ice. Huh? Yeah, you know him well. Funny guy, too, huh?
He is one of the funniest.
Are you going to bring the listeners inside?
I may...
Inside the locker room? Are you going to bring him inside his noggin?
I may bring him in. The fact he used to get Stu Grimson really going, and Stu's a wonderful guy, a wonderful friend, but he used to drive him crazy. He used to tell him his parents named him Stu because they couldn't spell stupid. And Stu used to say, Butch, I've had it with you. And poor Grimmer, he's just a nice guy, but he would hurt you too, Grimmer. He was tougher than barbed wire, and it was just constant banter like that was hilarious. So you have to love the guy. But we're going to talk a little Steven Stamkos free agency. We're going to talk a little bit about the Stars, the fighting. There's Stars fighting all over in the league now. So we're talking about that. We're going to talk about. We got a little background music for you folks too during the show today because we're taping in our studio.
Yeah.
We got an Amy Grant concert going on tonight, and they're going to be doing sound checks with it. So we thought we'd add a little. Ambiance behind it. One of the officials said a little cursing. What do you think of that? I said a little bit of sound in the background. I didn't realize that they were pumping it in through the
Hold the concert sound check, please. Chasing Pucks with Panger is in progress right now on NHLPodcast.com.
We brought it up last week, John Scott in the All-Star game, but I had a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I want to bounce that by you. And of course, Mark Messier and Wayne Gretzky were talking about the state of the game, 3-on-3 play, and its discipline. So what do you think, Panger? What do you think? What do you think about this whole state of the game? With Mark Messier seems to think he likes the game right now.
I spent a little bit of time, and I know Mark Messier and Gretz are great ambassadors to the game. They've always put the game ahead of everything else. And the interesting thing with Mark was he thinks the game is good. He thinks the passing's good, the execution's good, the speed of the game's good, and it's not unlike the era that he played in. There were going to be times where their games you had off nights. The games weren't that good, even in the 80s and the 90s. But he thinks overall he likes the way the game is right now. And I thought it was interesting about Gretz, just talking about 3-on-3. It's funny that you and I had become good friends of his, and every time there's a 3-on-3 game or if the Blues are in a 3-on-3 game, you get a text right away if he's watching the game because he gets fired up about it because it's 3-on-3 hockey. There's no coaching.
Right.
There's crisscrossing. There's patterns. There's 2-on-1s. There's 3-on-1s. And can you imagine those old Edmonton Oilers, Chaser in that time? They gassed 4-on-4. They had to ban 4-on-4 because the Edmonton Oilers were so good at
dominating. They get
at
a penalty.
making sure that the two guys went to the box 4-on-4, and then it was lights out. Curry, Messier, Anderson, Gretzky, Coffey. I mean, come on. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, no. But there always is things they want to tweak in the game, and I, the 3-on-3, you're seeing the coaching. There's more coaching being involved in the 3-on-3 now.
No, leave the coaches out of the 3-on-3.
No, I know,
no, but there are.
But there are. They're all of
yeah.
a sudden they're starting to say, let's put 2D out there and play for the shootout. We think we can win a shootout. The Islanders are a great example. They're defending during the 3-on-3. They're defending, and then just killing teams on the shootouts.
And you imagine with that team, they're defending for the 3-on-3.
I know.
But I did see Oposo on the shootout.
Oh my God!
That might have been one of the sickest moves I've seen in a long time.
Lord.
That was like Pavel Datsyuk reverse, was it not?
No question.
When you take it on the forehand, pull it on the backhand, and then bring it back to the forehand, backhand forehand up under the bar and in. That was unbelievable. Yeah, well, no wonder I guess they want to get it to the shootout. Hey, but if it's 3-on-3 and he gets a breakaway, he can do the same move.
He could, but there's a chance that there's going to be a turnover, and they don't want to have that. They're like, hey, let's defend. We'll win, and that's the way they've been playing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Amy Grant singing in the back. Isn't that beautiful?
She's got a beautiful voice, huh?
Oh my God!
I heard she wants me to jump on stage and sing a couple of tunes.
You guys are gonna
tickle the ivory a little bit, play a little. You know me. I'm really talented that way. I can really belt it out.
I was wondering what you were going to say at the end of that. When she wants me to jump on stage and tickle the ivory.
Tickle the ivory.
That's great. That's great. Well, you know what? You're right. It is a good game right now. We're having a lot of parity in the league. You see teams running streaks. Florida's on a hot streak now. Free agency is something that we need to talk about because
UFAs, complete free agency.
25-year-old Steven Stamkos is going to decide whether he wants to be the highest paid player in the NHL or whether he wants to be a Tampa Bay Lightning, but it won't be both.
Yeah, won't be both.
It won't be both. So
I would have to think if he wants to be the highest paid, then he'll be somewhere else.
Let's make this our tweet of the week. This will be our tweet of the week. Okay? Here we have it. The tweet of the week is a gentleman sends out something for Stamkos to keep in mind that he's going to be a free agent. You know, think about Toronto, and he favors the tweet.
Oopsie.
That could be our tweet of the week. It could be our dude really segment.
We're not sure which one that's going to fall into.
We're not sure because, but I do have the dude really segment coming up. And but like, what do you think about him doing that? What do you think? Do you think that's a little bit of a leverage play or not a smart play, or what do you think? Just you like that tweet and the media blows up. You can't do it.
Of course it is. It's in Toronto. I mean, the Toronto media is going to pick. I mean, it's crazy. And the next time he comes into Toronto, which is soon, it's going to be overwhelming. Now he's going to be focused on everything but the game of hockey, and it takes away from his team. He's the captain of his team right now. He's not right now. He's a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and and maybe it was. I mean, I've seen the puck on his stick. He doesn't have bad hands, so there's no way. I've seen the one-timers. He's got good hands, but to do that is a real bad error for all of Team Stamkos. For Donnie Meehan's his agent. They've got Gary Roberts is his strength guy. You've got Adam Oates is his skills guy. You've got him. He and his family making this huge decision.
Right.
I'm sure it's overwhelming for him at times. But man, to make that kind of mistake it's a bad. Whether it's an accident, whatever, Chaser, it's a bad mistake.
Well, if it's an accident, he's done it 2 other times. Back in 2014, he did the same thing, commenting on Johnny Tavares and him becoming free agents with the Leafs.
That's right. And
so it's twice you made the same mistake. I call a little bit of BS.
When does the league kind of come in here and say, whoa,
I don't think you can. I think it was more about him personally doing it. So it's not like the league can say, what are they going to say? They can't tell you how you think, your thought process. You're going to be an unrestricted free agent. As long as he doesn't talk to the organization, I think he's in pretty good shape.
I think he just did.
Yeah, well, he may have let them know.
Call me goofy, but pressing like on that tweet and favorited it.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree with that.
It's too hard nowadays to be a young captain. You mentioned the parity, to lead, your own team, to be the player that he wants to be, to fulfill the expectations of Steven Stamkos, just to add any kind of that, what would you call it? Any kind of, not maintenance, but it just, it's too much other baggage that you got to deal with. You don't have the energy to deal with, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Because now we're talking about it, and we're just a bunch of guys on a podcast talking hockey, and that's what a lot of people have talked about the last week. Right.
No, well, and it doesn't need to be talked about. You're right. Let's talk about this subject. It comes up a lot, and I'm sure we'll be talking, a little bit about it here in the future as well. But fighting's just going to be a contentious conversation with everybody, no matter how you look at it. Mm-hmm. Fighting now has become the all-stars. Last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about how much more the top players in the league are being taken advantage of and run at.
Yeah.
Now we've transitioned into the top players fighting. Listen to the names that we have fighting so far this year. These are just the ones that I pulled up that I've looked at. Crosby, Giroux, Voracek, Taves, Ben, Perry, Stamkos, Malkin, and Tarasenko. They're fighting. Now you think of a year when Gretzky, Lemieux, Yzerman, at the quarter-way mark, Hull, right?
He was picking up your gloves.
Yeah, the closest he came to the fight was when he got an argument with the parking maid there at the old arena. That was the closest. And but I mean, seriously.
That's a lot of top players, bud. That's a lot of top players. Well, I think maybe we have a little bit of a lacking of teaching some of the players coming up that fighting may not be what the team wants you to do, but fighting is parlaying hockey sense on the ice into doing the right thing. Hockey sense is finding out what's going on in a scrum, sticking around in that scrum for as long as you can stick around in that scrum and not pretending like nothing happened and go away. Maybe the top players have said, I've had enough of this. I've had enough. I'm getting hacked and whacked. In the old days, Chaser, you wouldn't let that happen to Brett Hull.
No, you're right.
You wouldn't.
You're right.
No, you wouldn't. And you wouldn't necessarily fight that guy right away, but you'd make sure that you targeted their top player or did something.
Well,
we're not seeing enough of that right now, and our star players are taking a beating.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I know that it's not going back, and we talked about it. I've talked about it with Brendan Shanahan when he was in the disciplinary area, and honestly, I don't understand the dynamic of it. To be honest with you, I don't understand why you'd want to have your top players. They're being bullied now, and guys that played the way I played stop the bullying.
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword a little bit, and the league doesn't want to get in the middle of it because of all of the lawsuits. I understand, but
Chaser,
you're seeing more and more good players frustrated because they're being taken advantage of.
And here's the thing that you and I are both between the benches, and the thing about it is a mid-tier player, a second-line left winger, a second-pairing D that's not a tough guy. He doesn't have to go in and actually fight a guy either.
No.
I mean, we're not selling he just has to get in there.
You have to make sure just get in there and look like you care about your teammate.
Right. Look like
that you can't just do this and then go in and be a little bit somewhat involved so that, you know what, listen, here's one thing analytics can't measure. The stomach. It can't measure the stomach. It can't measure the fortitude. It can't measure the anxiety you have in the afternoon before a game because you're pressured to score, because you're pressured to defend, because of the fact you might have to fight. Fighting and being accountable changes the stomach. And you can't put numbers to your stomach and how a player reacts in a certain situation. Because if in that one game he has an off night, the other numbers cover for it. Mm-hmm. But the one off night that he has in a building can be the difference in winning and losing. And when you're not allowed to take care of or take advantage of top players in a building, it gives the top players an advantage. And that's what you want. You want your best players to be able to play, not be out with injuries, and not be having to fight.
And I guess, okay, so I guess my point is that if you have a team that has a five-man pack mentality,
Right.
always there, always buzzing around.
Right.
You know, in the scrums, always buzzing in and out, then you likely don't have this issue.
No, you're
If-
right.
if
Well, strong in numbers.
Strong in numbers all the time.
Strong in numbers, buddy. That's how you have to play the game.
Yeah.
But still.
So these top players, think about some of these guys. I've seen Jamie Benn fight before. He's a good fighter.
Darn right, he's tough.
Okay. Jonathan Taves, we've seen Jonathan Taves and a number of top players go at it, and he's a good fighter too.
No question.
Which one of the group is a surprise of that?
Well, Malkin,
Yeah.
Stamkos,
Yeah.
Tarasenko.
Yeah, and Tarasenko's he's just such a strong ox. He can grab everyone. At least he can
Voracek.
tackle them down. Oh, Voracek.
Giroux.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I that doesn't surprise me with Giroux.
Well, no,
He's
I
got
know
some
he's a feisty
spunk.
guy.
Yeah,
no
he's got
question.
some. Yeah, he's got some.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
slight
Yeah.
because I'm a huge fan, but I'm just saying, why is he doing it? If he breaks his hand, he's one of the most dynamic players, and
Yeah.
he shouldn't have. You should not have to do it. And if you think that these guys care about a fine from the league, you are absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, you are. I think David Branch is way over the line with his suspensions in the Ontario Hockey League sometimes, and other times I understand them. I understand what he's trying to take out of the game. But David Branch, if I sat down and talked to that man, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, he has no idea what the stomach has on an impact in a day of a game. Now, you shouldn't be able to intimidate somebody to a certain point, but you should make enough of a difference to not have your best players run at. He slayed out some of the biggest suspensions ever in hockey, and they still do it, and they're getting more and more frustrated with the game. So I have to tell you, you can say, the change, they're down,
Yeah.
the suspensions are down, but you know what's up? You know what's up? Your best player is getting hit.
And
it's way up.
Getting hurt. Yeah.
And getting hurt.
Yeah. And I guess I'll go back to, I've known David Branch for a long time.
And I respect him, I gotta say that.
Yeah, he was there in the Ontario League when I was there in '81. And he's in a highly competitive marketplace to keep players from going to NCAA and to, let parents know that we're a good, safe league. This is a good option for your kids. We want them here in the Ontario Hockey League. Fine line, and very fine line into going to the extent that has happened there. It's a lot different than the old days. My first expansion team was the Belleville Bulls. Right. We only had Craig Cox, a guy named Craig Kitchener, who's passed away since. We've had this average fighter named Marty McSorley at the time. I think that's about when Dave Branch said, "Okay, we're going to change
the
this."
rules. Craig
Cox, and Marty McSorley from Cayuga, Ontario.
Holy smokes! What a group you guys.
Ben Kelly. Oh, we had some. Yeah, we had Ali Budarak. Yeah, it's even a tough sounding name, isn't it?
I know. We had a fairly fun show in Saskatoon. We had Twist, Kosher, Clark, Chase, Kaminsky. We had Brian Glynn, Curtis Lasician playing D for us, and we were big and mean.
You think?
Yeah. Sean Van Allen was our scorer. He had over 100 points, and he came to the league
a lot
as
of room,
a checker.
didn't he?
I'll tell you what, he was a much better offensive guy on our team than he was anywhere else, because boy, did we make sure nobody laid a hand on him. He was all we had. Him and Kevin Kaminsky was a heck of a player in junior. Corey Kosher was a first-round pick, so he was a heck of a. And we had some sluggers out there, boy. But I'll tell you what, it was a different time, a different era, and I know we'll never get back to that.
Yeah, no, but it's still about the hockey sense of it's a team sport, and in a team sport, you stick up for one another. You stay tight. You make sure that one player's not on an island, one player's not out there, and there's three of the other team even hovering around them. You make sure you're all right there. Same thing I used to say when the other team, and this is a different kind of hockey sense, Chaser, and I'll kind of segue. But when another team's captain is having a 30-second conversation with the referees, right? And none of your players, let's say,
are over there not knowing what's going on.
Or you can watch any game in the NHL, and anytime I see it, I go, man, why isn't the other team going there and listening to what he's saying? Or let's say a coach is having an extended conversation on one side with the referee. I mean, I would always have my captain or whoever get over there and find out what the heck they're talking about, so we're not missing out on the edge here, or what advantage they're trying to secure on that side. Right. That's all just hockey sense, isn't it? No different than when I say a goalie that can't play a 2-on-1. Does he know it's a right-hand shot or a left-hand shot? Does he know he's a passer? Does he know he's a shooter? Do we know who's
That's
a mucker?
doing your homework.
Who's a grinder? That's just doing your homework.
Doing your homework.
That's
Just do your homework.
That's what we love about the game.
All right. Well, listen, I think they got Vince Gill's music going right now.
Really?
It's a little louder.
Is this when I'm
a little
gonna
bit
go
more
out there?
boom. We got it in the background here down at Scottrade here in the lovely McBride and Son home suite. So
Nice.
we're going to take a quick break and be back in a minute with you. It's Darren Pang. I'm Kelly Chase. Chasing Pucks with Panger on NHLpodcast.com.
Hey guys, it's the Ocho Man with the show Ocho Man Behind the 8 Ball. What can I say? This show covers it all, from sports, politics, whatever's out there of interest, we cover it all. Our co-host, we got Armand. I definitely feel that he's got a bomb shelter somewhere with right-wingers hanging out, ready to take over the world. And on the other end here, I got Nick. Nick's an alien. I really believe that Nick landed on this planet re-educate us all, you might say. Again, check our show out every Friday. I'm sure you'll love it. Also, to find out more about our show, go to ochoman.com. I'm sure you won't be disappointed.
Behind the 8 ball, all my life, that's where I've been.
It don't matter. You can't have it on a plane.
You're on the Polar Express. You're on a
No,
sled.
I'm saying that they keep it with them
toboggan.
traditionally or whatever. You can't have that on a train or a plane or anything like that. Fuck you. I don't care what you got. I don't want you with a knife on a train or a plane or anything.
Are you okay with the beard?
I'm okay with the beard. You can have your beard, but just don't dunk it in my soup or anything.
Now, back to Jason Pucks with Panger on the Lineup Media Group Podcast Network.
Back here with Darren Pang. I'm Kelly Chase, Chasing Pucks with Panger. Well, buddy, we've had a interesting week around the league. Lots of good stuff going on. Some little bit of, controversial, maybe a little story here and there we could talk about. One of the good news stories and feel-good stories of the week is the story from Edmonton. They're honoring Glenn Sather.
I know, isn't that something?
It's awesome.
He was a mastermind of that dynasty. You talk to any one of their guys, and just the way he handled the young players at that time, how he had the ability to kind of put his arm around them and still kick them in the groin at the same time, and how to keep them on the straight and narrow. I always thought, this was just my opinion, okay?
Right.
And I got called up in 84, 85. I got called up I was the third goalie, and the Blackhawks played a heck of a couple of series. Beat Minnesota, in a couple of overtimes, and anyway, kind of got all the way to the conference finals, and it was the highest scoring playoff series of all time, Chicago and Edmonton. And it was funny that all the guys in the Blackhawks, they would go by Glenn Sather. And if you go back in the history of quotes, they all thought he had this cocky smirk on his face.
The scar.
Yes. And they would just give it to him over there, and even guys would publicly say things, and then Slats finally had to come out and say, "What are you talking about? I always look that way. I got this scar in my face." But the way he looked at the players made you feel like there was, okay, what's going on with this guy? What's this smirk on his face?
But didn't you look at him and a guy like Scotty Bowman as well and wonder what they were thinking about lots of times?
All the time.
Oh, me too.
All the time.
I'd look over he intimidated me.
Yeah.
I was intimidated by three on that bench. I was intimidated by Dave Semenko. I was intimidated by Mark Messier because he was my favorite player in the NHL. And I was absolutely, for sure, intimidated by
Slats?
By Slats.
Huh.
There's something about him, I'm thinking that, maybe that he had the respect of all of the players like he did, the way he carried himself, the way they were successful. I guess that's what intimidated me about him. But he had this, and I'd love to see that the guys are all there honoring him. The great players that are there, Fuhr and Mess and Gretzky and Coffey and those guys, when they get together, imagine how much fun that group has with the great, because championship teams stick together, right? Can you imagine the great stories? And I remember Wayne telling this story about how Slats he loved Dave Semenko, but he would get on him a lot, because I guess Dave was a little bit of a, he liked to have a little bit of a good time or whatever. And he said Slats one time, he had hurt his knee and he had to do some rehab stuff and that. So they gave him a program that consisted of push-ups, sit-ups, and running. That was his off-season one. And Slats called Dave and said, "Hey, how's the knee, or how's the training coming?" He goes, push-ups and sit-ups are fine, but this running, he goes, "Oh, the knee bugging you?" He goes, "No, my cigarette keeps going out."
The old smoke, it keeps coming.
so they say Wayne tells his story about how Dave Semenko said he wanted 3 things: that he wanted to be on the cover of Hockey News, he wanted to get a hat trick in the NHL, and he wanted just one. He goes, and he got a hat trick. He was on the cover of the Hockey News, and the third thing he wanted was Slats to walk in just one day and say, "Mess, Gretz, Sammy, take the day off." Said never got the third.
Maybe Slats can do that on this great weekend that they're going to have. And isn't it, the Rangers are in town, and I think there was a time where it wasn't highly amicable, and I think time heals a lot of things, and I just admire that the Oilers have always paid great tribute. Well, I was a member of the broadcast team in Phoenix when Wayne was coaching. It seemed like everywhere we went, they were retiring a sweater, and they always organized it when Wayne was there.
Sure.
In L.A. with Luke Robitaille, where I swear he ran out of batteries 3 times. He went so long. It was Glenn Anderson, Paul Coffey.
Yeah.
Those were the nights that we were there, and Wayne, God bless him as a coach, he made those players. He made them understand how important this was, and had them on the bench. Yeah. When you see most teams, that drives me crazy.
Hey,
do you know the Anaheim Ducks, when Steve Yzerman's sweater was retired, that they stayed in the room? They stayed in the room. And old Berkey, and I'll never forget this, and we all love Brian Burke, but he was complaining afterwards in the hallway, because I emceed it.
Right.
And sure, it was long, but Steve's one of the greatest players that's ever played, and he's owed that. And if it's 10 minutes too long, so be it. The game, that nobody even remembered the game anyway.
Right.
But I remember Anaheim complaining that it went a little bit long, and in the meantime, in the speech, there's Yzerman thanking the Anaheim Ducks. But anyway, Gretz would always make sure that the players were always right there, and so this is going to be really neat. When I one time, I didn't really know Slats. Unless you play for a man and are with a man all the time, you don't really know him. We might know him from the media, or me personally, know him from being around certain events. And I wasn't sure, how Slats perceived me, or how, did he. You don't know who he respects or who he doesn't respect sometimes, huh?
Well,
Chaser,
you don't even know.
You don't even know where you stand.
In my case, you don't know if he knows you, and then he says hello to you, and then you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, that was nice of him." And then he sees you in the hallway 10 minutes later, and he goes, "How you been, Tony?" Calls me Tony Twist.
Well,
and then I start chatting with him. He goes, "I don't know why I just called you Tony. You're Chaser," and so it's nice to talk to him.
Well, one time I was Grant Fuhrer had a great golf tournament in Vancouver. It's shocking that I was at a golf tournament with Grant Fuhrer, and so we're there, and afterwards it's a great fundraiser, and there's paintings going on, and there's guys are throwing around money, and there's and there's Slats. He flew to be there, and he's a busy guy, but he got there, and the late Pat Quinn was there as well, and they sat there all night. They had their wives, and I learned a little something about that man, about Glenn Sather that night, that people wouldn't know that, but he must have spent $80,000.
Really?
Just got that picture for 30. Raised money for this. Donated something. That was going to be auctioned off. That was out of his own. Pocket for Grant Fuhrer. That to me was it really. I sat there and had a couple of cigars and a couple of cognacs with him after that. Asked him why he never traded for me. I thought I could be a good backup to Fuhrer. But anyway, it was a nice...
I could have been a good backup to Fuhrer.
Yeah, he only played 79 of the 80 games. But it was a neat thing to see him and how much he cares about his players.
Right.
Truly cared about his players and kept them all together and kept them winning. And I just, great admiration for that whole group of guys.
think I have a real appreciation when they did the story on Gretzky's trade, and the last time I've seen it done, when he just talked about how he was mad, and he almost left Edmonton because of what was going on, and how he Pocklington and him were,
they were not seeing eye to eye on that.
Oh, they were fighting, and it was unbelievable. So, for a guy to be honored, he should be honored in Edmonton. He's had a successful career as an administrator and as a coach. He was a journeyman that played, I think, on 7 teams.
The Blues were one of them,
The Blues were one of them, and
Rangers
and the Rangers.
Boston.
Yeah,
I'm going to go 7. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, 7.
Pittsburgh, I think, was one of them
yeah,
as well.
I agree with that,
But so you're looking at a guy that, he's had a tremendous career, and I think, when you look at that, when you look at a guy that's done and accomplished everything he's accomplished, everybody's going to have their story about him. But I can assure you, the one thing that's the most common theme is that he got the best out of a group. He knew what his core group was. He knew how to bring in pieces every year just to fit in the puzzle, so they had a chance to win. And when he accomplished that, I think it's easier. It's not easier to win, but you have a better understanding of what it takes once you won. And I think that Slats had that great understanding of how to do it. And he always gave them the best opportunity to do it by the trade deadline to win with those teams that he had.
Yeah, it was always about winning,
Oh.
and always putting the right pieces together. Even that hockey, even the hockey trade. I mean, thinking of trading Paul Coffey, and some of it's contractual, and had to make a hockey decision, but bringing, I think it was Craig Simpson that came in that deal, right, from Pittsburgh?
That's right.
Ended up scoring 50 goals and winning a cup as well, or 2. So never easy running a team. You're not always going to give the players the right answers or the answers that they want, but you're doing it for the right reasons so you can lift the Stanley Cup. So when they go into their new rink, do they take Gretzky's old statue from this rink now and move it there, or do they bring another statue, and then do they have... You got to have Slats' statue there. I mean, as the architect, as you enter the building, you got to have Wayne Gretzky's.
Yeah, well, I imagine they moved the statues, but the amount of ceremonies that we do in our league now, they might just they might go through the whole 6 different ceremonies for 6 different statues again and put them up there. You never know. Statues, they're going to re-retire jerseys. Who knows what they're going to do? But certainly Slats belongs in that, and what a tremendous slight to him. We're going to take a little break. We're going to be right back. It's NHLpodcast.com, Chasing Pucks with Panger. You want to find us on Twitter, it's at NHL Show, Facebook.com/NHL Show, and at NHLpodcast.com to email us. So you can, remember, you can check out all our shows on Lineup Media Groups for shows like Ochi Man, Behind the 8 Ball. You're on the clock. Let's get it on MMA with Big John McCarthy. Great show this week with Big John coming up. They are going to be talking a little bit about, there's some controversy brewing in the boxing arena with Big John's going to be doing the big fight that's this weekend as well, and Sean Relack, of course, on with them. So folks, we'll be back in a minute. Darren Pang, Kelly Chase on Chasing Pucks with Pang.
Hey, this is Big John McCarthy.
And this is Sean Wheelock. Be sure to join us every week for Let's Get It On, as John and I bring you the inside view of MMA and combat sports. On this week's program, Big John and I will speak with Tricia Morrison, the widow of former WBO World Heavyweight Champion Tommy Morrison, who had his boxing license suspended by the Nevada Commission in 1996 for a positive HIV test, which effectively ended his career in boxing. Tricia Morrison vehemently denies that her late husband ever had the HIV virus and will tell us why she's filed a civil lawsuit in an effort to prove this in court, as well as the court of public opinion. You can download and subscribe to our podcast on the iTunes Store. For Android, download the Stitcher app and subscribe. And you can go straight to our website, letsgetitonpodcast.com. The widely accepted version of events is that your late husband, Tommy Morrison, contracted the HIV virus and ultimately died due to full-blown AIDS. But I know that you feel that this is completely false.
Well, it is completely false, yes.
Do you believe that there is an illness that is called HIV or AIDS?
Do
you believe that illness is real?
There could be, but let me tell you,
really
it did
no.
not exist. I'm not a physician, but let me tell you, it did not exist in Tommy Morrison.
Here we are, chasing pucks with Panger, NHLpodcast.com. I'm joined with my good buddy Garth Butcher, and hey man, we were talking about this prior to coming on and saying, listen, I don't know anything about these podcasts, but all I knew is that when you could sit around, shoot it with the buddies of yours and tell stories. That's all we do now. That's all we have now, Butch.
Well, it is, but it is pretty fun, and I think that lots of people would like to be hanging over our shoulders sometimes when we are telling some of the stories. And the nice part is the stories get bigger and better as the years go by, but it's still the same cast of characters. It's pretty fun.
You're in town in St. Louis right now for the Captain's Night, and that's a special thing. Obviously, I know you're honored. You were honored to be a captain, and you were always a leader. But to see the group of guys that are coming in and to be around them, that's got to be a little bit. That's pretty neat too.
Yeah, you know what? It was a real honor, and it continues to still be an honor, and it kind of I reflected on a little bit this week coming, and I thought and the guys we had in that team chaser, it was pretty easy to be a captain of that team. I mean, we had 20 of them. We had remarkable characters. We didn't have guys that you had to get in line or whatever. They all got it. They came to play. I loved our teammates from that year.
Well, when you look at kind of the way the game's evolved, are you happy with the state of the game? Because you've never been a guy that's ever been bitter. I remember when you retired, you said, "Hey, it's someone else's turn." I said, "Yeah, but you could have played here." And you're like, "Nah, you know what? I've had a good run, and it's someone else's career. I played as hard as I could." And so, what's your thoughts on the state of the game?
You know what? There's always things that can be done that's different. I mean, first of all, as you said, as a player you left, and it was sad. Some guys leave and they think they want to play longer and they don't get a chance. And myself, I was fortunate to choose my time, and I'm still happy about that. And I'm still really proud of what I did, but also feel the game treated me great and continues to this day to keep rewarding me. And the state of the game, you never want to talk bad about current players or ex-players or different things like that. I mean, I think the guys today are amazing athletes. I think that the work and the preparation that they put into it are amazing, and they're true professionals. I think a little bit gets lost now in the personal touch of the hockey players are always guys that whether you're with the media or whether you were a fan, that you could always latch on to a certain guy in a team that was really just like you. And if you were a normal guy, there was somebody on that team that grew up like you did, or did what you did, or brought to the table what you do in your line of work. And I think that's part that's missed a little bit. And it's not the guy's fault. It's the guys that kind of have been sheltered and kept away from it a little bit more. And where you and we walked into the guys in the street, and whether we sat down beside them and bellied up and had a nice cold Budweiser with them, or
we never did hardly any of that.
No. Well, they were, and we'd have a coffee and water.
Head over to a Pilates class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We played with some great characters of the game, and one of the guys that was brought up last night, and we were chatting, was Brian Sutter, and he was just one of those tough. I remember him. He used to punch me in the ribs before games. I'd come up behind you, punch you in the ribs, and say, "Hey, lad, are you ready, lad? You ready?" And then one time, he came up behind me and he punches me in the ribs and he says, "Hey, kid, you watch that Dave Brown tonight. He's all left." And I'm thinking, I don't care if he's left, right? I'm not going near Dave Brown. He's all left. Like, I'm going to fight with. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll have my eye on him. But what a character he was.
Yeah, well, Brian, you know what? Brian, to me, and one of my favorite coaches of all time. And I know that, some guys thought Brian was hard and he was, a little too tough on guys or different things like that. I really thought what Brian brought is I thought he brought honesty. I thought he was hard, but I thought he was honest and fair.
Fair, yeah.
And I know Brett Hull, who you would think would be the exact opposite of a guy who would be a Brian Sutter type player. He made Brett, helped make Brett the player he became. And Hully will admit that to you, to this day.
You know the story, right? At the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
You want to tell? Yeah. You should tell that. Right?
Yeah. Well, Hully goes something like this. At the end of the year, we always had our exit meetings and whatnot. And Brett went in and sat there and put his feet up on the desk like he always does, and expected Brian to sing his praises of what an amazing, I think it was a 41-goal breakout season.
It was 46, something like that.
Yeah, he had a breakout season, and he thought that was it. And Brian Sutter basically looked at him and told him that he was lazy and that he was out of shape and that he was not as good as he could be, and he had no idea how good a player he could be, and that he was leaving a lot on the table basically, and that if he thought he was going to get a pat in the back for that season, he had another thing coming. And of course, the history shows that Brett came out the next year and scored 86. So
72, 86.
72 and then 86. Yeah. So Brian was right. I don't know if Brian even shook his hand after 72. He probably told him he needed to get more after that too. So
he was a driving character in the game. One of the things I had fun with though is the Sutters, the two brothers playing. Richie and Ronnie played for us, and of course Brian was our coach, and it had to be a little tough, unnerving on them. They didn't speak sometimes for away from the rink for weeks, and it was crazy the way these guys had this relationship.
Yeah, it was crazy. And of course Brian was very well respected amongst the family, and Richie and Ronnie being the youngest and whatnot like that. They kind of had to bow down to him a bit, but it was even quite funny, and we told a couple stories last night about when we were playing against the other Sutters. And there's some mixed feelings, and I know that, like whether it be you or I or whatever, we'd be beating on Brent or whatever it was and going on and so forth, and Dwayne and all the other little nicknames they had, and I know that Brian kind of loved it,
but it had to eat him a little.
To eat him up. Richie and Ronnie were a little softer, I don't want to say nicer guys, but softer guys.
Yeah.
I know it bothered them kind of a lot, you know. They weren't exactly giving us any hints as to which hand Brett Sutter threw punches with. Of course, I think when we fought him, he didn't get to throw many.
No,
anyway.
that's right. Boy, I told you that story we were talking about last night. Remember when we were there, and I ran into Eddie Balfour on the ice, and of course there was a little bit of a storm that went on after that, and Dwayne Sutter happened to be the guy that I ended up fighting, and I tuned him in pretty good, and he ended up with the instigator. So not only did he lose the fight, but he gets a 2-minute penalty, and we score in the power play. And so I'm already in the box. When he comes out of the penalty box, I'm in our bench. And he's screaming at me and hollering and cursing and telling me how he's going to get me and my family and everybody I know and all this. And finally I told him to sit down. He said, shut your mouth. You can't even be, he said, you must be adopted. You're not even tough. And the two twins were howling. They thought it was funny. And Brian kicked me so hard in the ribs and told me to get my head in the game, and I felt like saying, that is my game. That's the best part of my game. The best part of my game is my mouth, right? And the fighting, and here you are, he was, so you knew there was some personal emotions in there. But you did talk about a guy that we all know real well and had a terrific career. It was just amazing watching Brett Hull accomplish what he did as a player, and some of the, just traveling into a city in the lineups for autographs, and he was the best player in the world at that time.
Yeah, it truly was. And it was interesting to watch is that the other teams knew it. It wasn't like, whatever, it was 3/4 of the way through the season and he had 60-some or 70.
Yeah.
And he was still find a way to get open. And it's actually funny, the other day I did an interview, and, of course, for guys like you and I, what we always get asked is, who was the toughest guy I ever played against, that kind of stuff. And I guess you relate to it different now when you look at it. And there was guys that you knew if you were in a fight that it was going to be trouble.
Right.
But there was also guys you played against that were tough, and they asked me to bring up a couple names. And I brought up Al Secord as a guy who was scoring 50 in those days and was like scary to play against in the little Chicago Stadium, things like that. But then I brought up Brett's name as well, and I said, there's a guy who was tough.
No question.
And his way to get away from me when I was playing against him before I was on the Blues when I was in Vancouver was just to shrug his shoulders and drop his stick down and let it go, and then you forget about him for a second. And of course, he loves to point out to me the next thing the puck's in the net.
Right.
And that was his way. But he took punishment from guys in an era when guys were allowed to give punishment.
Using aluminum sticks.
Using aluminum sticks.
You could beat on a guy with an aluminum stick, and he scored 72, 86 in those goals in that era. And what I find, you're 100% right. When I say that about people, I talk about the very same thing you're talking about Brett Hull being one of the toughest guys I ever played with. We all know about the fighters. I always talk about, Joe Kocur being what I thought was the scariest guy to play, him and Dave Brown. And I always say this, no disrespect to Bob Probert because he's so well thought of and known as far as fighter. But I fought Bob a lot of times, as did you, and I never ever worried about him hurting me, whereas one of those other two guys could end your career.
Yeah.
But yet Brett Hall, you mentioned his name in a sentence with tough, and they're like, what do you mean tough? And he never went in the training room, took a heat pack and stretched on the floor. He's one of the most flexible athletes I've ever seen in my life, which is unbelievable when the body shape and type of him, right? Right?
It's flexible is probably not the first word that comes to
mind. No, when you look at him, I can tell you a story. Gretzky challenged him to a yoga contest in a restaurant. Wayne did. And I said, there's no way, Gretzky, there's not a chance you were going to win this. And he's like, are you kidding? And Kirk Muller was, he's Switzerland and everything anyway. But Kirky, he didn't really, and he goes, Holly, I'm sorry, I got to bet against you. It wasn't even close. Holly is just, the flexibility of him. So he just stayed in the locker room, never went in the training room, put the heat packs on, and played through injuries all the time and just played. Yeah. And never had to worry about whether Brett Hall was going to show up to compete in a game. And I talk about, but speaking of who were the other guys that you said, some of the tough, because there's guys you play with that people are like sneaky good, sneaky tough. Who were those guys that you respected as playing through that kind of stuff?
Well, like you said, like Brett, the one thing you forget is that there wasn't a complaint, and there wasn't like a whole bunch of drama in the change room. It was like, oh God, and there's drama up to the game. Some guys like, oh Jesus, he could be able to go. He's really hurt, and next thing you know, he's flying around the rink, and you're looking at him going like, I can't even move. But, so obviously guys like Brett, Oatsy was another guy who was, just slight in structure, right? The stature is just his. If you walk by in a business suit, you would not say the guy's a hockey player in any way, shape, or form. But just a truly, intense, tough individual who went in the hard places to make the passes he made, and he was making those little backhand saucer passes with 225 pounds of angry man coming at him. Right. And a lot different than a golfer standing up on the tee and hitting the shot. He was truly, and without you could tell when there's fear in a guy's eyes. He never had it. All he was doing was looking for an open guy. That's all he cared about. So,
that's true. At 100%, the way he played. I always say Chris McAlpine, and I'll tell you why. I know you didn't play with Chris, but He was one of those guys that I had a tremendous amount of respect for because of how he played the game. He played hard. I've probably seen him fight a couple times, maybe a year, once, maybe twice. But it wasn't the fighting part of it that I thought he was tough. But one year, which really just stands out in my mind as epitomizes hockey players, was he broke his foot, and he knew his foot was broke. So he broke the foot, and he doesn't take his skate off. You know how that goes. You take your skate off, and it all balloons up. His whole thought process was, I'm going to come in the locker room, I'm going to put this skate on, or take this skate off, and I'm going to have to put it right directly in ice. So he took all his other equipment off and was sitting down, and he went in the training room and he unbuckled, and that foot, we were watching, and it was like somebody had a bike pump and a flat soccer ball, and it just went whoo, and just blew up, and his foot's broken. So he pumps it in the ice, and eventually gets x-rays, and he walks out in crutches and a boot. And we're playing 3 days later against the LA Kings in the first round of the playoffs, and he wants to play. And Joel Quenneville's like, you're not going to be able to play. He goes, let me just try it. So this guy goes out. Now he played high school football, could have been a football player, a linebacker, and he was a catcher in baseball. And he's a defenseman in hockey, chose hockey. And financially, not maybe the smartest move, but whatever. And he goes out and plays and skates with a larger skate on, and he plays the entire first round of the playoffs. And when he would get the Novocaine to put. We're not supposed to say that anymore. That you got actually froze to play, but put between his big toe and his next toe was where the first shot went, and the next one down the side of his foot, and then in the instep. And he would just hold on to the training table, and the sweat would be coming off him, and then fine. And he'd giggle a little bit when he was done, and he played 4 games. We won. We swept L.A. He went into the hospital to get it checked at the end, and he said, check my wrist, and he had a broken wrist. He'd been taping his own wrist since January. Yeah. So, when people say, well, who's one of the toughest guys you ever played with, they're expecting you to talk about fighting. Yeah. That's one of the toughest guys I've ever seen. When you can play like that, that's truly something that I think is special about it. You came up. You were the youngest guy that ever played to play with the Regina Pats at the time. You guys went on to the Memorial Cup, I believe, correct? Yeah. And then you go on and skip that minor league experience, thankfully.
Most of it.
Most of it. But you play in Vancouver right away. What was it like as a young guy to just kind of, all of a sudden you're like, because we all grew up in Canada, that's a dream.
Yeah.
And there's only been 7,400 people in the history of the game that ever got to live that dream. So if you over the 100 and some years of the game, that's a small amount. So what was that like?
Well, you know what? As a young guy, and we're still. I think I'm smarter than I was last year. As a young guy, you don't. Obviously it was super great, but I don't think you understand how great it is and how exceptional it is, and what a great opportunity it is for someone. For me, it was just. It's actually, I'll tell you a little funny sidebar to the story. Growing up in Regina, Saskatchewan, it was really close to where you grew up as well. You do there was guys who played at the Regina Pats who were in the NHL, and there was my dad's friends who owned Billy Hickey, who owned the sporting goods store in town. He played in the NHL, and those were people I saw and knew, and so I just figured that's what I would do. There wasn't really. I didn't know the path. I didn't know what I should be doing. I just figured that's
the way.
That's what's pretty much going to happen here.
And how it works.
Actually, funny story. I'm coming through the border crossing. I live in Washington State now. I was going up into British Columbia to watch my boys' hockey game one night and go through the border crossing. And the lady looks at me and she goes, "Well, Garth," when she sees my ID, and she says, "I went to elementary school with you." I said, "You're kidding." She goes, "Yeah, I know. You signed my yearbook." I said. "Oh, that's really cool. I'm sorry I don't recognize you." She goes, "No, you signed my yearbook. Garth Butcher, I'm going to play in the NHL." She said, "You're in grade 8.
Really?
Yeah, and I said, I don't know whether to say I'm embarrassed by that story, by how cocky I was, or laugh at it. But it was just, it was remarkable. A lady that I hadn't seen in obviously at that time, 40 years. And
did she age better than you?
Well, not according to my eyes, but yeah, absolutely, yes. In case she's listening, she was a beautiful lady, as all of them.
She's going to download
all
this.
of them from Regina were. But yeah, true story. And I laughed. Like I said, I was just going, man, it's just that's how we thought it was,
And then you get there and you go, well, this is just what I'm supposed to be.
Here I am, and whatnot, and. It was like I said. You look back in the years, and especially I think for the guys you play with and played with in junior and even minor hockey, where you go, wow, that guy was a terrific player. That guy could do this guy could do that, and then you see how far they make it or don't make it or different things like that. You really have to have. I believe that everybody they earn what they get, but by the same token, you need some breaks along the way. You need some good luck, and you need some good people supporting you as well. You can't do it on your own.
You had an opportunity to play in Vancouver, as I said. You come to St. Louis, and then there's a trade from St. Louis where you end up being involved going to Quebec City, and that was a tough day.
Yeah, it was a tough day. It was, it's one of those things where you try to remind guys now. At the time, you talk about playing through injuries or different things like that. It was we were coming up to the All-Star break. And I knew the All-Star break was coming. I knew I was going to get the time to rest, and I was basically playing on wrapping both groins for the last 2 weeks before, and I was not playing well. But of course, as not the smartest guy in the world, I refused not to play, and I wanted to play, and I figured once I got through the All-Star break, it would be okay. Well, I think Mr. Caron thought I wasn't playing good enough, so he traded me, and I wish. But at the time, we had really, you know better than anybody, and how much I love St. Louis and how much I love playing in St. Louis. And by the same token, my wife Tana said the other day when we talked about us coming back, she goes, if you look back on our life, like those were, some of the best times ever, and whatnot, and that we really did enjoy it. So, I quite frankly said no when they told me about the trade, and Bob Berry, our coach, said no, and Teddy Sater, I think the only guy in the room that wanted it was Mr. Caron and whatnot, which of course made me feel good. My teammates all said no, and at the time it was.
Yeah, I remember it was a hard deal because here you got this new guy coming in, sitting in the room, and it was Steve Duchesne, and the poor guy, it wasn't his fault he got traded there. And he wasn't exactly embraced when he first got to the team.
Yeah, no, the guys told me a story. I think it might have been you telling the story about Shanny, because immediately you guys took off to Anaheim.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm staying here. I'm not going to Quebec City. And so I think you told me the story years later that the poor guy's sitting in the room afterwards. Bobby Berry walks in and he starts going on and off about the trade and ranting and raving.
We didn't want this guy. It's not our fault that the guys, and the poor guy's sitting in the room. It was terrible. But.
Yeah, Shanny said to Bob, he's sitting right here, right? Like this.
Well, listen, man, I love sitting down with you as usual, and it's great having you around. I know you're going to have a great night with the Captain's Night, and we love having you coming on, and I appreciate your time, buddy.
Yeah, anytime. You bet, Chaser.
All right. That's Garth Butcher here on Chasing Pucks with Panger. We'll be back in a minute. And folks, listen, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. You get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial at audiotrial.com/NHL. Over 180,000 titles to choose from your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Back in a minute. Chasing Pucks with Panger.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Geiger from the You're on the Clock podcast, and if you love football the way I do, but hate hearing about the off-the-field drama that ESPN reports every day, then you need to go to ontheclockpodcast.com as part of Lineup Media Group. We give you the best football content every week, and we don't talk about any off-field drama. And we also do a DraftKings contest weekly where the top 2 players get to take home some money. So that's, once again, ontheclockpodcast.com. Come check us out and let us know what you think.
You're listening to Jason Pang on NHLpodcast.com.
Back here with Darren Pang. I'm Kelly Chase, Chasing Pucks with Panger.
You sound good, too, on the band.
You like the band? The new band come in behind us as well. I like this whole ambiance of the concert deal going on behind us, and I'm kind
Amy Grant.
Amy Grant.
Scott Trade Center.
We are. We're going to one more little quick topic, and we had one of the officials. I don't want to bring his name. That's not important, but he got picked up on the crowd mic, and it bothered a lot of people. It didn't seem to bother as many people in the hockey arena as it might have, and I know the optics were bad, but one of the officials, and I'm sure we can get the audio and plug it in, one of the officials swore at one of the players, and I want to hear your thoughts on it to start with.
Well, my thoughts on it were these players that embellish has got to frustrate the heck out of the referees. Right. So I know what happened. I know that player, from what I understand, embarrassed the referee in the first period.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
So, and now the referee gets caught by that player, hook, line, and sinker, and now sees it happen again, and boy, before the whistle, anything can go, boom! Oh yeah, that's embellishment.
Right. Right.
That's 2 minutes. Don't do that again. You're going to your room.
Right. Feel ashamed.
It's a timeout for you.
I know the optics of it were terrible. I guess from the you got kids. It's kind of a family show, but I'll tell you what, it happens so much on the ice. He got caught with his pants down a little bit with the mic, and I think you definitely have to be more careful about it. But the players that were watching, it's a unique perspective because the players that were watching, they couldn't care less. They were like, that's what he needed. We're tired of him doing it.
Yep.
It was James Neal of the Nashville Predators, and again, one of those situations where you're sitting there and you're wondering, oh my goodness, is he going to get in trouble for what just happened here? And yet you hear the guys talk, and they're like, who cares? And then when you get down on the bench,
the players saying who cares? Yeah, they don't care about the referee saying that or how he said it.
No.
And if he would have said it in the middle of the ice, there would be no microphone right there. No one would have known what he said.
Well, the beauty of it is it happens every game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens
this
every game.
This happened to be behind the net where they had the microphone right there. Sometimes it's not as long,
and they just catch it. And so now, so the people were, there was a lot of talk about it. Now I sort of chuckled a little bit. And I called a couple of our colleagues and I said, hey, where do you stand with this? And they were like, are you kidding me? We're going to bat for this guy, this official. It's a joke. We're worried about it. So I was glad to see our fraternity stick behind the officials in this. And you know me, I can be hard on officials. But in this circumstance, I just think when you're playing an emotional game like that and all eyes are on you, and you make a mistake, like they did, not making the first call on the guy. Now you're trying to embarrass the official. Yeah. That's going to get in their crawl space. They're trying to make a living too, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
You know what, Chaser, and I thought and I watched it again, and again, like you did, a little background on it, and I think, I like the passion of the referee,
right?
Because I think we
need more of a rapport with that passion, right?
I don't think there's enough of that,
right?
And it's not their fault. Every one of these officials, they're good people. They want to be part of it as well. They're part of the National Hockey League. They're referees. They have a big say in what happens during the course of the game. And they know the players as well as anybody knows the players.
Right.
They know how the players disrespect them or do something on a face-off, or diving is such a dishonorable thing.
Right.
But it's been around now, and it's been allowed to grow and fester here. So I like when a referee shows that passion like that. The NHL, sure, they fine the players, but that's not as big of a deal. I mean, remember we started again this year with a list of where we don't know who gets fined or whatever for embellishment. There's no embarrassment to it. It doesn't seem.
That's the thing. I think there needs to be more of that.
So it's nice that the players back it up.
No, I agree with you on that. So we're on the same page on that one, certainly. What a great week. What a great show, buddy.
Yeah,
I
really
enjoyed
good.
doing that with you.
And listen, having Garth Butcher on here.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah,
Listen to that.
Yeah, really, really phenomenal stuff. I know the fans are going to really love that, because that's the character and the stories.
Yeah, if you're a hockey fan, how can't you, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he's one of the greatest names in hockey.
Garth Butcher.
I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go tune my guitar.
Tickle Amy. Tickle the ivory.
I'm gonna tune my guitar now. I'm gonna have a cold one with Amy.
Go tune something, big boy. Well,
okay,
listen,
buddy.
hey man,
Great
show.
Hey,
great show.
What about our 3 calls of the week?
Yeah, we got them coming up. Fit in there. Our 3 calls of the week.
Good ones, huh?
3 calls of the week are fantastic. You're going to hear them as we bust you out here on NHLpodcast.com. Chasing pucks with Banger. Listen up. Our 3 calls of the week.
Now it's Kyle Oposo for the Islanders. And he scores. Nice play by Kyle Oposo, who goes 4 for 5 in the shootout this season.
Terrific move by Kyle Oposo. Almost the same move as Giroux was attempted. Kyle coming in a little slower than Giroux. Not as many fakes, just a couple of quick ones, and then pulls it back. And then up and right into the toy department. A terrific effort by Kyle Oposo.
It is drafted. Shattenkirk wide open. He scores. What a pass. And Shattenkirk makes it 3-1. Well, that's the difference. Elliott has a chance in the offensive zone. The goalie Smith iced it. Play stays in the zone. Great pass by Laterra. I mean, a phenomenal pass by Laterra. Everyone's puck watching.
Works ahead to Duncan Keith. There goes Kruger to the net. Keith a shot right on, and a save by Rene. It's loose. It's good. The Hawks have scored. The rebound goal tapped home. Patrick Kane's going to extend his streak, and the Hawks down 3-1.
Well, what a great play by the Blackhawks, and you see Pecorine very upset. They went to the net hard, and it looks like Marcus Kruger knocks this free.
Well, the Predators now trying to buy some time, hoping that the war room in Toronto will extend the time available to look at this play again.
Coach's challenge with interference with the goaltender.
So he did indicate a timeout to be called. That's the way you signal for a coach's challenge. And they're going to say that their goalie was interfered with.
Because it was good goal on the ice, unless this is goaltender interference, it'll stand. And let's listen to the call.
This is Gord Dwyer will inform us.
Upon further video review, the puck is loose on the play. Chicago gets a loose puck into the net. On the ice stand. Nashville loses their timeout.
That's the right call.
This has been Chasing Pucks with Panger, a Lineup Media Group production. Find the show online at NHLpodcast.com, plus on iTunes, Stitcher, and all major podcast outlets. Get access to all of the Lineup Media Group shows at lineupmediagroup.com.